So Nathan Desmond just upset Luke Lilledahl, which if you've been living under a rock is ranked number 1 in the country at 125 and won Worlds a bunch of times. This was after a pretty solid day beating number 16 Cooper Flynn and then number 23 Charlie Farmer. Pretty crazy turn of events, Nate's first college tournament, though Nate has always had close matches with Lilledahl, lost to him by slim margins in the finals going for the world team a few years ago, and they were teammates at Wyoming Sem and now teammates at Penn State, so the match is bound to be close due to how much time they've spent wrestling each other in the practice room. I'm super pumped for this. He's my nephew. I've known him his whole life, trained him for 7 years with his dad. He's the hardest and most consistent worker I had in the room, so I'm really happy for him. The first period ended up being 0-0, but not after a lot of time spent with Lilledahl on shots that he couldn't quite finish. Each time Nate was able to scramble out and get himself free. Lilledahl found his way to a single multiple times, but Nate caught a shin whizzer, stayed patient, and got himself out of dodge. Lilledahl would need to get to that single without the whizzer being a thing, neck on the leg, reaching far across, and keep a really good angle on it, but easier said than done, I suppose. He had underhooks and was able to dig them up and attack easily, but the overhook came right back down and gave Nate a solid defensive position. He would really need to clear that tie up before he shoots to have a better chance with that. There's always an opportunity for Nate to go fireman's off of the underhook, but with the time spent wrestling Luke, I'm sure there's a reason he's not jumping at the gun to do that. Second period, Lilledahl gets choice, defers, then Nate chooses bottom. I would always recommend taking bottom first in this situation when you get choice first and the score is 0-0. An escape point giving yourself a lead in the second can have reverberating effects on the rest of the match. Not to mention first person who scores gets choice if the match goes into overtime. Nate gets up to a 4-point stance. Lilledahl chops at the right leg to get him to fall back down to his knees, a common thing to do in freestyle to finish a takedown. Nate straightens his leg out, turns in, and starts to look for what would be like a double. This is pretty cool. I haven't seen this been done before. Lilledahl goes thigh pry to keep Nate's hips away, which naturally pulls pressure back, giving Nate the escape. 1-0 Desmond. The period does end without score, lots of hand fighting, the wrestlers slowing down a little bit. Lilledahl almost gets a far knee pick from an underhook. He's been getting good shots and angles with that underhook for a lot of this match, but Nate somehow keeps his feet on the mat, pedals back, limps that overhook arm out, and almost sneaks behind, but Lilledahl is able to keep his inside arm up and catches the hips, prompting Nate to attack again, and the action kind of just flows out of bounds. Third period, Lilledahl chooses bottom. Nate gets a little high riding legs, isn't able to get enough hip pressure to flatten Lilledahl out, probably because Lilledahl keeps good control of Nate's wrist, and then steps his leg out as Nate tries to stabilize again. Lilledahl attacks the head, which shrugs Nate off the top. Nate tries to bail, which is good. Knowing when to bail from legs is important. Giving up an escape is much better than a reversal, but Lilledahl catches a piece of the ankle and comes up around for a takedown, or a reversal at this point, 2-1 Lilledahl. Lilledahl goes to lift, which is a bit awkward given his position is a little bit behind Nate with the lift. When you lift someone, it's always easier if you're out to the side a little bit. Lifting from behind is much more difficult to get hip clearance. Nate dives under at the near ankle as if to funk out, comes up with the leg. It looks like Lilledahl is attacking that far hip for a crotch lock, which is what you should do there. Allows you to scoot around, lock the near ankle, get your hips up, look for the takedown, or stay on top in this case, but he doesn't commit to it or loses his grip. Lilledahl goes to kick away, doesn't look like Nate is really trying to hold him down, lets him go for an escape. At this point, that's a super smart idea. If Nate chased him out of bounds and created another scramble and it was called dead, then Nate would wind up back on bottom, so letting him go in this situation is smart. Score is 2-2 tied. About 30 seconds left, Lilledahl has that underhook again, the tie is cleared, Nate goes to pop up the left elbow, and as he shoots a high crotch, he happens to step on Lilledahl's foot, which is a bit lucky and would be pretty difficult to do on purpose, but if it was on purpose, then damn, because it stops Lilledahl's motion and gives him enough time to get to the leg. Lilledahl then gives up the whizzer and dives out of bounds. This is a weird decision. It's almost like he gave that away way too easily. You should always attack a shot and defend it. Diving out of bounds at this level is going to get you taken down a lot more than you're going to get free. Nate gets the easy takedown 5-2. 24 seconds left. Lilledahl gets an escape. Nate lifts. Lilledahl does a nice Granby, which forces Nate to let go of the locked hands and give the point away. Not much Nate could have done about that. He had to let go of the locked hands, otherwise he would give up another point. Except maybe getting out to the side again before lifting, but maybe he didn't have time to do that. 5-3 Nate. Lilledahl chases for the rest of the match, but too little, too late. So Nathan Desmond upsets #1 wrestler in the country, Luke Lilledahl. I don't know what happens for Penn State now at 125 pounds, but I'm sure Kale has a plan for this kind of thing. He always tends to have a plan.